that he's trying to get here, and he went to 3294 and there was no one there. I put in the chat that he should go to 3291, which is 133rd Street and Broadway. So it seems like he's lost.
3295 is actually the.
Oh, well, okay.
I think I have.
So let me ask also, are we guest, or how does this work? Because it says I'm a guest. Okay, something else came up and it shows participants. Okay.
Yes. The Zoom should have me as co-host, the community board as the host, and then the other folks are technically considered guests, which just means that you're not the host. Okay.
There's a lot of feedback.
Is anyone else hearing feedback? We're not getting it. Pat?
Yeah, well, maybe that's not feedback. Maybe someone is, okay, go on, but it's some over talking over.
All right, so here virtually we have Monique, we have Luquita. And I'm just looking here, Michael is on, but is apparently coming in person, and we have Shanika. Okay, so Barry Weinberg is here in person, Victor Edwards is here in person, Heather Jason is here in person, Shanika Wilson is here virtually, Luquita Henry is here virtually, Monique Hardin Cordero is here virtually, Pat Waller Johnson is here virtually, and Michael Iglesias is on his way in person, I believe. So, I think many of the community board members know each other, and we can have Michael introduce himself since he's just starting on the board when he arrives. But we are also joined by Zoya from Assembly Member Al Taylor's office.
Hello to all of those who are virtual. Nice to meet you all.
Hi.
Hi.
So
I'm sorry, whose office?
From Assemblyman Al Taylor's office.
Oh, very good, thank you.
And you want to tell us what you do for the Assemblyman?
Yeah, I just recently joined the team, so I'm very excited to be on board, and I'm very excited to be here in person. I do communications and also community liaison work for Al. So yeah, it's just kind of getting the hang of things at the moment. But yeah, happy to be here.
And if I might add, Zoya joined me at my district service cabinet meeting last week as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to make an adjustment to the agenda, which is that we're going to add an item under the community benefits agreement, which will be artists and arts organization space. Are there any other things that folks would like to add to the agenda that are not already listed?
Sure. I had mentioned at the exec board meeting, good evening all, that we need to, thank you.
Hello,
we need to
hello, Chair.
Good evening. We need to have a representative from each committee on the strategic planning committee, because a lot of the issues are committee-wide. So we had it at one time, we kind of drifted away from that. There are a few people actually assigned to the committee, but take that up at your next committee meeting to have someone from each committee assigned to strategic planning.
So we have good attendance from health. And we have also landmarks, parks and preservation present. I guess I can double duty as housing. Pat is also from Senior Issues Committee, right?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Evening.
but so we do need arts and culture. And, we YEL present. And so, is anyone on uniform service and transportation?
I'm calling Carolyn now.
Okay, so we're missing UST and we're missing, economic development. Okay, so there are, so the agenda has been proposed. We're not going to adopt it in the absence of quorum. Because we still need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We still need one more person for quorum. Are there any other items for folks to put on the agenda? I know I asked that already, but.
The
Okay.
only thing I was thinking about, excuse me, Chair, is that, it would be good in the discussion of the budget within our committee to have someone who is, very good at this, kind of lead our discussion. That's what I'm going to request. I don't know if other committees need that, but we have it on our October 2nd agenda. I mean, we would all read and discuss it, but is there someone, well, I know he's not on the board now. Oh golly, now I went blank on his name. But anyway, if there's anyone available to kind of sit with our committee, I think at one time there was, not that, you know, things have to always be, but I think it would be helpful to us.
I don't know who you're thinking of, but I'm gonna walk through some of that as the first discussion item. But so I believe the minutes were included in the meeting notice that went out, maybe not. Well, I'm doing an experiment with minutes today. So we're actually going to try feeding in the transcript of this Zoom meeting to ChatGPT and see if we'll take minutes from that. So it'll be a fun experiment. Another groundbreaking move by the community board in our experiments with the 21st century technology. I will, because this is something that's come up a lot. So, but I'll just jump right into the discussion then. So, and I'm actually going to start with our role in the process. So for those of you who don't know, one of our charter mandated responsibilities as a community board is to submit our statement of district needs and a district overview to the Department of City Planning, and then our top priorities for our district for both the city's expense budget and the city's capital budget. And so the fiscal year for the city begins July 1st and runs until June 30th. So right now we are actively in fiscal year 2024, FY24, and the budget process that we are beginning right now or have begun is planning for FY25, which will start July 1st of 2024. And so as you can see from this handy diagram from the Office of Management and Budget, in November, Mayor submits the November financial plan. And then in January submits the preliminary budget and 5-year financial plan. Right here, where this arrow is between July and November, the community boards are responsible for turning in those priorities to the OMB so that they can be used to create the January preliminary budget. And so we are at the start of this process. Budget consultations with city agencies have begun. And our priorities and statements are due to the Department of City Planning and to OMB, thank you, but my brain is gone today, by October 31st. So we are having our public hearing on our budget priorities on October 17th at 6:30 p.m. in this room at 3295 Broadway. And just for everybody's awareness, in case you haven't been to our offices in person yet, we have 3291 is the staff offices for the board, And so that's where Madison and Yutha and other folks sit, Akil sit, and also people who come in to work with the board are usually there. And then our meetings are held in 3295 conference room space. So if you come to 3295 and you don't find us here, check at 3291, we may be moving back and forth.
Okay, so on the email, it said 3294,
Oh, we need to fix that.
and, kind of led me to like 129th Street, it's kind of near the forum, and I was like, man, this is.
Sorry about that, okay.
We need to, yeah, fix that. And so what that looks like functionally for us is, I know I just typed this, do you remember what it was, the budget stuff? You said it was. No, okay.
Schedule?
Yes, no, the form, the portal.
Oh, I think you found it on the budget.
Yeah, I'll find it. Portal, something portal. Anyway, but so in addition to what folks are usually familiar with for us, in terms of the list of our expenses and capital items that we want to prioritize, we also have the statement of, our analysis of the needs of the neighborhood that has mostly, quite frankly, fallen to Yutha and myself and the treasurer for when I was chair, as chair, to me and Yutha and others, to kind of work very hard to get the committee co-chairs to submit to us. And it's a number of questions about specific priorities for clusters of city responsibility and programming. And so I am going to open that here shortly. But one of the things we'd like to do is get a jump on that now, so that it's less of a crush in October. And so if we go to the portal, which I found, CD priorities, they should call it CD, but just to give folks a flavor of this, and what it looks like when we are entering it to OMB and DCP. We have our district overview and most pressing needs, which people are usually familiar with. We review it every year. It talks about, it's the kind of preliminary preamble of what our district is and what challenges we're experiencing. And so we heavily overhauled this during the pandemic to reflect the impact of COVID. And so we have information about our poverty statistics here, information about employment and unemployment and what industries people work in, income, rent, etc. But then where I think we really need folks, committees to step up is for things like the most important issue for youth education and child welfare. And so we have issues that we can select, and then we explain why that is selected as the most important issue. So issues for youth and child welfare can be adolescent substance abuse, adoption, foster care, after school programs, child protective services, child care services. We selected community and or home-based support services for families. There's youth workforce development, so they give you a bunch of options, and then you can also do an other category and write in, whatever that priority is. And so the way we did this, I think 2 years ago, was we copied these questions and the options into a Google document. I'm going to share the example here from Senior Issues. And we asked committees to fill it out. And so all of this will be going out again before October 1st, so that the committees can tackle this in their October meetings. But so we'll be asking committee co-chairs to prepare their sessions to go over some of these questions. So, that is a big part of our process. Yes, you may.
In the relevant budget request. And on the specific category.
Yes, and so our budget requests then that we vote on in the public hearing then have to get grouped in the portal under those clusters, so to speak.
So we speak about the needs and then we have the budget request reflecting the needs.
Right, and so, you know, it says, please write, what are the needs for youth education? And then it's, what are the budget requests that you want us to fund in order to meet those needs? So that is what we do before by October 31st. In January, we then review the mayor's preliminary budget and submit feedback or public comment.
Basically, the preliminary budget is responses to the request that we submit for capital and expense. So when you see mayor's preliminary budget, it's basically the responses to our requests.
And then finally, or well, not finally, so we review in January and provide comment. And then I strongly encourage folks to testify at the relevant city council committee budget hearings. So for example, if there's a line item that we really care about for the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, the Council Committee on Housing and Buildings has a budget hearing for that department. And I encourage folks to go to that. I know that one year we, along with a bunch of Till residents, showed up with like 40 people at that budget hearing and completely shocked the council and HPD, and then they finally began paying attention. So it's a good place to air our concerns. And then finally, the budget is voted on usually in June and is published, and then we analyze the budget. So strategic planning committee will also be working throughout the year to make sure that the priorities for our district are funded. And that is in addition to its long-term project of ensuring the community benefit agreement obligations are met and lived up to by the Development Corp and by Columbia. So what that means for committees is we need them to submit their category greatest needs with supporting statistics or examples, and then think about what budget priorities can be funded to meet those needs. And then bring those answers and priorities to the October 17th budget hearing. And so in order to do that, we will be circulating Google Docs for committees to fill out. We will be holding the budget hearing and doing our prioritization. Because we're starting this a little earlier than normal this year, we can circulate the final package, hopefully before it's submitted. And then we will have the public hearing on preliminary budget in January, February.
After it's released is normally in February, late January, early February.
Yes. And then review adopted budget. It would be in June or July, really.
You don't want to.
We will. So that is kind of the overview of the budget process. I know we go over it every year. I forget it every year. So I hope this was helpful, and I'm sorry for talking so long about it. Are there any questions about our role in this process and the timeline? Hearing no questions in person or virtually. Hello, Carolyn.
Hi.
So we have also, a flyer put together by our office for, and with, the Department of City Planning is doing public feedback on what the top 3 pressing issues are for our district. And that deadline is October 17th, but it's really just to get a sense of the public and what their priorities are. I think good public participation is nice, but it doesn't impact necessarily our obligation to do this process.
And it's a survey. So you would identify, you can even do it for your, like, Zonia, for your home board, you can take the survey because it's citywide.
Okay, cool.
So you go in and put your borough and your community board. If you don't know your community board, you can call 311 and they'll tell you, just give your address. And it basically also has, I'm not cutting you off, Barry, there's a portion on the flyer that you could flick for your profiles, for your community board. So you can review it before you take the survey to get an idea of what was submitted last year. And as Barry stated, the deadline is the 17th. It's just to give the public the opportunity to state what their 3 major concerns are for their community.
Yes, and so that is something that if you want to share with your neighbors and friends, we will, flyer for public feedback on October 17th. That is something that will be helpful as well. Does anyone have any questions about, because Laquita, I know you had this question for your own committee about how we're supposed to tie, the observed needs to funding requests.
Oh, I was really, yes, yes. I know whenever you present it, it sounds really easy. You are excellent with it. I think what I was referring to is probably in that next process where we have, what the city decides that they're going to do and looking at the cuts and where cuts are. So I think I had this initial process. I was thinking ahead. This I think we should be able to handle pretty well. It's that next process. So I'll wait till we get to that.
Got it. And so just as an example for health and environment, healthcare and human services issue your district is facing, we said, they give guidelines, make sure you're actually answering the question, explain what need is lacking, reference research and figures to be current, avoid acronyms and abbreviations, specific locations if applicable. And so we put tenants in MCB9 rental buildings and IT developments continue to face health threats from lead, dust, and mold that are not properly abated. And then we mentioned We Act and Palante, working with organized tenants to file complaints, comprehensive testing, code enforcement, coupled with robust tenant rights advocacy are needed. We reference as evidence the 1,100 open HPV violations for mold in our district and several hundred open violations for lead. And then we also reference our high asthma rate. So I think Edwin put this together maybe last year, but they also provide resources for folks to review. So, there's the Department of Aging has some reports, Department of Health and Mental Hygiene has an environment and health data portal, as well as community health profiles, which we hate because we get split into 2 districts weirdly. Health and Hospitals has community health needs assessments. So they do try to provide resources for us to find this data, and those will be included here on the Google Docs that we send out to committee co-chairs. So, the Department of the Aging, if you want to look at what data they have, or the health data portal, you can just open the link that's included in the Google Doc, and it will take you to their public health data portal. So it is work, right? It's a lot of work, that, and you check air quality, housing, health inequality, et cetera. It is a lot of work, but it does make our budget submissions much stronger. And we've had that feedback from TCP and OMB several times in the last 2 or 3 years. Because we really took a whole kind of gut rehab overhaul to budget statement in 2020, I think, when the pandemic hit.
When you do the research and you submit it with your request, it gives the agency heads I would say less work, and they have backup documentation if they're going to go to OMB and the mayor's office to push your request. So it's very important on all your supporting documentation, any stats, it helps. And we should also bear in mind from jump, we're looking at a 15% reduction on all agencies across the board.
Yes, which is going to make it very tough.
Very.
Does anyone have any questions about this part of the process where this will get sent out to committees for review and writing? Yes, Mike,
Yes,
hold on, Monique, let me call on you after Michael.
so my question is, how has it looked historically as far as the budget goes? I understand that the mayor wants to make budgetary cuts, but how has it looked historically and in those years where it's been like a big budget cut? What are the biggest priorities for this community? That way we can focus on that.
That is what we will be, the priority will be something we discuss at the budget hearing. I think historically, housing, employment, and health have been the 3 priorities for expense budgets. Although there's no guarantee that that has to be the same outcome this year. Do you know historically how we viewed cuts in the preliminary budgets?
Preliminary budgets, what is it called, PEG? Planned, elimination.
Of the gap?
Yes, elimination of the gap. Where we try to come up with if there's going to be a cut, we try to come up with what would be beneficial for the community if we are faced with that cut. And to also state that we're in dire need, like you can't place that cut on sanitation, you can't cut the days. We have rat infestation, and everything will be a chain reaction if sanitation is cut. It's sort of like we try to have them look at it, if it is a cut, how detrimental it would be to the community.
I thought I saw a peg somewhere, maybe not. But one of the things that will be very helpful for folks going into October is if they review the fiscal year 2024.
Which is the current fiscal.
Yes, the current fiscal year, some of the documentation there. And so there will be a link sent out to this. All of these links will be sent out, and I think some of them were already sent out. But one thing that's also very helpful, particularly to youth education libraries, parks and landmarks, housing, I guess, for NYCHA, is the Asset Information Management System reports, which will tell you all of the repairs and maintenance that the agencies think their facilities need. So for example, if we go to the New York Public Library, we have the Hamilton Grange Branch Library. They last surveyed it on January 12th, 2021, and they think that they need exterior wall work, and they need $101,000 for that, $140,000 for windows, and then air conditioning work as well. And so if we look at the other one that this might be really easy for is parks, because it is a physical geographic location with very distinct capital needs. That is, something that can be funded very obviously. And so capital projects tend to be easier to know if you're getting what you asked for, because it's right there, it's brick and mortar. And it's, you know, something that you can physically touch and observe whether or not it got fixed.
And I would suggest that we put a higher priority on things that are listed there so that we know it will be considered for funding.
Heather, do you have an idea of a parks issue that's probably, needs funding that we can try to fund?
My daughter is not, there's like enunciation part,
Interesting, it's not funded, it's not on us, so we may need to raise this with them and ask them why we're not seeing our parks in the AIMS system. So that's one thing, there are a number of other tools that we'll be disseminating.
and then shelter and arms part.
Yes,
That's currently under renovation, correct?
No, they just presented a proposal.
Okay.
So this will be next year fiscal, so that should be, it's a $1.8 million budget for that. Shelter and arms part.
so Monique, I know you have your hand up. The one other thing I will add before stepping away from this is another link that will go out is this map of, from the Department of City Planning on capital facilities and program sites. You can go ahead and filter by administrative boundary to community district. And we are, of course, Manhattan Community District 9, and it will show you all of the capital sites in our district that are either city-owned or that are the sites of city services that are provided. And you can color code it, so you can just see the parks and gardens, you can just see the libraries and cultural programs. If we go to parks and gardens, and we zoom in here, Shelter and Arms Playground.
Yeah, the full deck.
Yes. And so this is a really helpful tool, that I think a lot of folks on committees don't take advantage of when they're thinking, what capital projects can we request? This is a really helpful guide. And also, if you go up here to this $ and you turn on the capital projects, you can actually see what agency capital projects have already been identified. So Aaron Davis Hall needs CCTV, lighting systems for the gatehouse. Jacob, wait, what is this? Sophie Davis School needs a HCR expansion, some daycare center upgrades, and then Jacob Schiff Playground needs yeah, so turf renovation, et cetera. And you can see this is actually a project that's supposed to go through FY 2028. So this is a big tool. I don't think committees use it enough. And so this will also be in that email. Monique, sorry, you've had your hand up for quite a while now.
No problem. I'm here remotely. I think one question I had was about the cuts that are being requested, and it looks like you touched upon that. And so I won't ask that question. But in terms of like, there's only 2 task force. Are we using the same rigor for the task force, specifically cannabis, and the other task force that John Martin oversees?
So task forces do not have to submit these, partly because if you look on the portal, you don't necessarily find things that line up with our task forces. But I know Don Martin's task force, the same gender-loving LGBTQ task force, has in the past submitted priorities across different topics. So, you know, they may have something under homeless services for LGBTQ youth, and they may have something else under parks for a monument for Audrey Lorde, who lived at 636 Riverside. So, you know, the task forces can submit things like cannabis could submit for economic development or small business services if they had a budget priority that they wanted funding that fell under these categories. Does that
Okay.
answer?
That's good. Yeah, that's good to know. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
The only other thing I'll touch on is in terms of reviewing the budget that passed in June. Two of the important things include, the adopted budget for fiscal year 2024, which has the, capital projects, capital budget here and supporting schedules, which will have, the capital project detail data where you can see, you know, okay, in this one under 309, which is Manhattan Board 9, they have these capital projects. This is what got funded in the adopted budget. The other thing I want to talk about before we move on is Schedule C funding. Schedule C is a schedule of funding that is council directed and that are modifications made to the budget by the council members and the borough presidents. And so this funding is at the discretion of the council member. And so this won't be another link sent around, but for example, if we wanted to see if We Act got any money, if we look at their actual government name, or if we just search for West Harlem under fiscal year 2024, and we see what comes up, we see West Harlem Environmental Action got a number of directed funds from the council members to Brave and Jordan, and then also under a Greener NYC initiative, they got funding. And then if you click on it, you can see the Greener NYC supports environmentally friendly programs that encourage education, advocacy, community service, and job training. So that is a council initiative as opposed to just a local designation by the council member. Another option is to search by the council member name, which can be helpful. We only have 2 council members, Abreu and Jordan right now. And so if we search for Sean Abreu's funding, we can see all of the organizations that receive funding from Sean Abreu. And so we can see that the USA Mali Charitable Association of New York got what's known as CASA funding, cultural after school adventure funding for enrichment to students through after school programs. So this is a really useful tool if you're trying to find specific city funding that went directed to a specific nonprofit. And then where are the expenses? There's also a similar filter for capital funding. So that is stuff that the council members directly control, or the council as a whole directly control and allocate. So if there are specific nonprofit programs in the district that we want funded, in addition to what we send through the portal, we can also advocate for those either in resolutions or in meetings with our council members and the borough president. The borough president only does capital funding. They don't have any expense funding. The council members have both expense and capital. Does anyone have any questions about this? Okay, I am going to, before we move on, I am going to ask for 3 programs that people think should get funding or do get funding from the city in our district. Anyone?
What about, oh, go on.
Yeah, you go.
What about Heritage Health and Housing? Heritage Healthcare Center?
Let's find out. I see the Ryan Community Health Center got funding.
Yeah, that's what made me think of it.
Mhm.
Or even Emma Bowen, you know, either one of them.
Heritage does not have any directed funding, at least for expense. We can check capital.
Maybe because it's an FQHC, you know, maybe.
I'm gonna call on you, Pat. Do you have any examples from?
I don't have any, no, thank you.
Shanika, do you have, well, this is like, we're not moving on to suggestions. So Shanika, did you have a suggestion?
Because I'm cheating, because I know from past experience, New York Public Libraries. So let's do Hamilton Grange or George Bruce.
I'm so glad you suggested that. Let's Hamilton Grange. And you'll see something interesting come up, because I searched for Hamilton Grange already. Oh, weird. This is not what I thought. This is what I was asking Pat about. Hamilton Grange Senior Center program got funded from Councilmember Richard's report.
Well, that's good.
I
Yeah,
do know. I do know
that's
that
good.
Hamilton Grange got capital funding, not from the council member. Oh, actually, we're in expense. That's why we don't have any funding coming up. If we searched capital, you would see,
But
you would
George
see,
Bruce, I thought George Bruce got some capital. They had HVAC repair work done.
yes.
It's less than 250, it's expense.
No, hold on, I'll show folks. So another link, there are a lot of links, and Yuka and Monique and Deirdre can testify to this, because I sent all the links out earlier in the week to them. But if we look at the capital project details for Manhattan, not a well OCR document, unfortunately. But we will find, under libraries, we will find Hamilton Grange, CUNY, mentioned here, public library.
This document helped Deirdre and I, so much last year. I don't remember having this document previously, or maybe I just didn't know to click on it, but this document is really good. FYI, if anyone hasn't used it before, it's great.
Yes. And so the purpose of this is, we've gotten a lot of feedback over the years that chairs don't really know where to begin. Committee chairs don't know where to begin when crafting these. And so I wanted to just, I know it's taken, 45 minutes or something, but I think it's helpful for all of the folks here. Oh, look at this. Sheltering Arms Playground Comfort Station is one of the capital projects, and it's on page 901 of the capital plan. Police, we said library. So those are some of the tools that we have at our disposal to look at what got funded, to think about what we need to get funded or to continue to get funded. Shanika, Hamilton Grange HVAC system replacement, page 3.
Yeah. Oh, Hamilton Grange too. Okay, good. I thought it was just George Bruce for some reason. Excellent.
No, this is actually the generic capital one. I didn't open up schedules to capital funding link yet.
When you were asking for organization.
All right, thank you.
Well, Sister Soul. I know they get a lot of funding. To see the council member. Sister.
So let's check Hamilton Grange, and then let's check Rosas. Let's check District 7, which is Council District 7. So we have Frederick Douglass Playground renovations, Grant Houses basketball court, Hamilton Grange library renovations, and so this is the wall and window stuff that was identified in Ames. So the city is already paying for HVAC through regular capital funds, and Sean Abreu allocated $500,000 to exterior rehabilitation and window replacement. And then the other one was Rose's. That may not have been from this year. Yeah, so that would have appeared in prior years. Schedule C funding, almost certainly. Actually, you know what? No, I know what it is. Because sometimes the tricky part is sometimes things are funded by city councils wide initiatives like the CASA, cultural after school bench. So, sometimes it's not a local designation, it's a pool of money that the city council collectively allocates for specific purposes. So, Does anyone have any more questions about either, the budget process and our role in it, or how to check on what got funded or might need funding? Mike?
Should we also take into account state or federal funding, just because, you know, budgetary cuts, if they already receive funding, then perhaps we can prioritize something else?
So that is another excellent topic. I am not gonna go through that right now. State funding is more applicable. We haven't seen a lot of federal funding directed to us lately. And generally what happens is federal funds that get directed to the state or the city that then sets up a system to distribute them or puts them into an existing program. So like, restaurant relief funding was nationwide. Section 8 funding is controlled by HPD in the city of New York. So it's not something that, you know, we get to see on a community district breakdown necessarily from the feds, but HPD would give us more of that information. But for the state, there is a whole other process that we're not gonna get into now. The state passes its budget, as Zoe can tell us. The state budget deadline is April 1st.
I cannot confirm originally.
Yeah. I think it's April 1st or March 31st. It was late this year. It was on time every time under Cuomo. I don't know what the track record of the new governor has been, but there is a very important bill in that called Aid to Localities and Municipalities, or Municipalities and Localities, that also has a similar roster of all of the local projects that get direct funding, but then the state has its own similar system of capital and expense. So that is definitely something we should be paying a lot more attention to, but it is not our charter mandated responsibility. But it is a resource when you're thinking of projects that you would like to see funded in the district. Remember that Albany also is there and has some money. Any other questions? That was a really good one. All right. Every person in attendance has to name one project or program they would like to see funded personally, not on behalf of the board, before we move on from this. Let's start with Heather. Everybody's gonna go on the spot. Name a park that has a problem you'd like to see fixed.
St. Nicholas Park Stairs.
St. Nicholas Park Stairs. Michael,
Just park as well, or just,
anything, any capital project or program expense, or local nonprofit.
I'll get back to you now.
Okay, I will go. Hamilton Grange Senior Center needs, kitchen and other repair, refurbishment and equipment. Victor?
So, I would say.
I'll come back to you. Madison? Manhattan Corner, Grand Window and expense or capital?
Whatever it is, like,
That'll be expense. So Madison brings up a good point. If you want to see more funding for people being employed, that is always an expense category. If you want bricks, mortar, and certain types of equipment that cost more than 50 grand, that's capital.
That's it.
Yes, that too. I agree. Monique, you have your hand up. You're volunteering.
I am actually, I wanted a point of clarification. The items that I'm thinking of, maybe, I don't know if they fall under DOT. One, I recently drove towards the Harlem River Drive, going up St. Nicholas Avenue, to go to Jersey to see my mom. And I noticed there's no traffic light there to control the flow, and there've been many accidents there. So I don't know if that's within our wheelhouse to make a request that a light needs to be placed there in order to control when cars turn and to just control the flow of traffic. I literally just experienced that, and it's very dangerous because there's been a lot of terrible accidents there. So
Well,
is that something?
It is, and this is something we'll fight with the agency about is, you know, the agencies have a list of capital projects they'd like to fund or they'd like to continue to fund. And we may have capital projects we want to get on their list, agencies have a lot of power in terms of what gets created as a line item to be funded. But we can request it and then go back and forth with the agency about making sure it gets created as an item.
So that's definitely one thing. If you need more clarification about that, I'll try to find the word for it. But I literally just experienced it in my commute.
Well,
So
no,
that's something.
This is just an exercise to get people in the mindset of, if you had control over the city's money, where would you spend it in our district?
Well, there, I think that, yeah, right there for sure, because that impacts everybody in our community, especially those who are traveling on that road, which many of us probably are, because it's right next to where we live. And of course, one more thing, if I might put out there, I'm being greedy. I'm gonna ask for a speed bump on 146th Street.
Yes.
That's the other thing.
You think?
I would say, expense under parks, Montefiore Park Plaza, kiosks, they're in need of electricity, water, so that they could be used. Right now, they're just standing still. I know a lot of the groups, specifically the block associations and the cultural agencies within the district would like to use those kiosks during the holidays or for specific events that they're advertising. So they're just, exactly, so they're just sitting there, and it's just to complete what's already there.
Yeah.
It's not big, it's.
Well, and Youtha brings up another point, which is that project had a project ID, a capital line item. The street collapsed on 12th Avenue, we had to fight to get that made a capital project line item, which is bizarre, a street collapse, like, why is this not a big issue? But Shanika, do you have anything you want to see? Oh, Youtha's got a list.
West Harlem Pierce Park, bathrooms.
Oh, yeah.
Shanika?
Ditto.
Wait, I didn't hear what Miss Yutha just.
She said bathrooms for the West Harlem Pier Park.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be amazing, so that you can actually enjoy yourself there and spend some time with your family. That would be absolutely amazing. So I know we're not doing the reports yet, but I will say like 92% of jobs in the job market include technology. My capital expense is actually related to my other expense. How do you call the one that's not capital? Both of them need around technology in our schools and making sure that it's adequate and up to date machines, computers, etc., and enough IT. So creating jobs, I suppose. But I don't know if that's a capital expense. Creating
So
jobs. I don't remember.
IT is weird in that sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't capital, but frequently the equipment is capital. So like if you're buying, but it can't just be a laptop. If you buy 1,000 laptops, that's a capital expense, but 10 laptops are probably not. Actually also shout out to the libraries for always having
Yes.
their stuff together and sending
Yeah.
us their requests every year. We're at least
They're wonderful. Margot actually reached out to us too from Hampton. So we may follow up with her offline. But that's one of my wishes is better technology for the students, especially in the middle and high schools, because that's the direction we're going in.
Yeah. Laquita, you're on hot seat.
No, I don't have any,
You don't
I
have
don't have
anything
anything right now.
You don't have
Not right
any
now.
program. Okay, fine. Michael,
I guess maybe like dedicated bike lanes.
bike lanes, which I think is capital. Deirdre,
Michael, you don't think we have enough bike lanes?
You can make the whole city bikeable if you want.
Coming back to me,
okay, oh yeah, Vic, okay, you have another one.
more garbage receptacles on the corners. I noticed they've disappeared. I spoke to a council member about that. Some people will consciously put it in the garbage can if it's there, but if it's not there, they have no choice. So I would like to see one in every corner.
Street garbage pick, street baskets, they call it. Yeah. Street
They're
basket.
enclosed.
Ditto. Sorry. There's so many things we need to address.
I've been speaking to sanitation superintendent Baba, And he said that the order is in, they haven't received it yet, I don't know what's taking so long, but the district is to receive, replacement baskets. They, go ahead.
Oh, on that topic of like,
Yutha, sorry, can I ask the question, what kind of baskets?
They're replacing them, they're replacing the wire baskets with something that's more safe. I'm not exactly sure as to what the material is, but I know he told me they were removed for safety.
they're like introducing like some mesh trash cans at like $1,000 a piece. But I don't really see, like, I mean, maybe that's a request to be made in the budget not to receive something that's more expensive or not as effective than it actually is.
Well, and I'm gonna wrap up the budget section here, but, I wanna just, I know Victor, you have another, one of you just said it. But I think, actually, Zoya, you didn't get a chance.
Oh, I'm on the hot seat. I was gonna say public bathroom, which is similar
Okay.
to this thing,
Good.
yeah.
I'm sure there are parks bathrooms that are closed that need renovations that we could put on there. But so this was an exercise just to get people like thinking about this and in the mindset. I would encourage people to do this in their committees, like this whole exercise. And also look at the data and questions to answer the data to answer the questions about what the biggest needs are. And then make sure that the things you're thinking of tie to your needs. But the other piece of this is that it can be very tempting to just write all this down, throw it over the wall at DCP and OMB, and then wait for them to throw back their preliminary budgets. These are conversations you can have with your agency representatives, and in fact, they send out a list of all of the budget points of contact for each agency at the beginning of this process. So we will make sure that they're circulated, but be in contact and conversation with those folks early and often. Carolyn, oh, I didn't call on you, Carolyn. Now I did. We can't hear you though.
ADT compliance for 26th precinct and 30th precinct.
ADA compliance for the
Right.
2630.
Correct.
Yes. So again, we're not actually, I'm not writing any of this down right now, but this is just to get your like muscles for like budget season stretched out and ready. And then also to lead these exercises in your standing committees. All right, any other further budget stuff before we move on to community benefits agreement? All right, and you those take your home.
Thank you.
So, as a reminder, and for folks who are not familiar with it, that is not the budget, the document. Okay. So for folks who are not familiar with it, this committee, the major focus of the committee is the community benefits agreement with Columbia University. And so to that point, as a brief refresher, I just wanted to lay out, and these links will also be sent out, or were sent out with the meeting announcement. There are 3 documents that are relevant to that. The first is the CBA itself. Which is a fairly short, and I mean, it's 50 pages, which is unfortunately short in these documents. And it is a listing of all of the things that they are agreeing to. None of it really is super binding, is the problem with the CBA. So it goes through a bunch of definitions, and then we have things like definitions. We have things like a benefits fund of $76 million, an affordable housing fund of $20 million, $4 million in legal assistance benefits, and $20 million in in-kind benefits. And then we have some details on how that gets rolled out, housing legal assistance, in-kind benefits, advice and guidance, demonstration community public school, which, you know, we have the Teachers College Community School, which is fulfilling that. Pre-apprenticeship programs and employment. All of this is like fairly easy to understand. The Mind Brain Behavior Outreach Center, which actually I have seen. teacher development, local master's programs, etc. That's the CDA. There is a second document, which is the general project plan. And this lays out, so for those who don't know, the reason Columbia did all of this is because they needed something. Not to be cynical, but they needed two things. They needed the state to exercise its power of eminent domain to forcibly purchase the land that Columbia didn't already own or control in the Manhattanville project area. And there were places that did not want to sell, and the state took it from them, paid them a price for it, but didn't give them the option to say no, and then transferred it to Columbia. The second reason Columbia signed this CBA is because they needed a rezoning to allow them to build what they wanted to build on the land that they just had the state grab for them. So that's why we have this. The New York State Urban Development Corporation is the state entity that exercised eminent domain for Columbia. So this is an agreement with the urban development plan for how they will develop the site of the land that the urban development corporation grabbed for them. And so this is more seriously binding because the Urban Development Corporation, also really known as Empire State Development Corporation, is supposed to be monitoring Columbia's compliance with this. Columbia pays for a monitor to tell ESDC whether or not they're complying, but you know, these are things that are kind of more binding in some ways on Columbia because there's an enforcement mechanism in the form of the Urban Development Corporation. And this also contains a lot of information about the project overview. This is only 60 pages, I thought it was longer. The final document, which is the most powerful document in terms of legal enforceability, is the Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions that run on the land. This is kind of the granddaddy document. It is 327 pages, but it is the one where Columbia is very strongly legally obligated to do these things. So, does anybody have any questions about these three documents? I know Victor's covered them a bunch before, but for new folks, I wanted to just go over it.
Yes, I'd like to know like history of how it came about. And then also why the community board agreed to this initial agreement. So I understand, I didn't read through everything, it was a lot, but the initial agreement started in 2008 or 2009? 2009. And then the declarant is in 2011. So within that 2-year time period or prior to that, what was agreed upon that led to that declarant? Is anybody that was there?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people on this committee who were here for that fight. I don't know, Laquita, Carolyn, maybe Pat, if you want to talk about what went into that.
What is the question?
How the process from between 2008 and 2011 of how these agreements came to be.
Well, I know that as you characterized it, Barry, it was quite a fight in terms of the community benefits agreement. And Columbia, for a long time, did not seem to want to budge in any way to with the community board, what the community wanted and felt should take place. But the community was very opposed to how Columbia was developing or the way they were going about taking over land and property. And so, but they were resisting and they won out. So as a result of that winning out did come an agreement that the Columbia should give back to the community in certain ways. And so it was drafted. There was a pretty big land use, came out of land use and housing when it was finally talked about and then certainly brought to the committee, but it you know, but there was resolve that came out of that. And the funding of the what became eventually the West Harlem Development Corporation, but it was named something else initially, but
Yeah.
the name changed finally. And
Carol? Carolyn, I didn't know if you had anything to add about the history there.
No, what she said is correct. I can't remember all of it. I have to really go back in mind. But what most of the Peter just said is correct. Like, we did have a big fight about it.
Yeah.
In terms of the Manhattanville General Project Plan, I was on the planning committee for that. That was a really wonderful plan because we had to first have the area rezoned. And so, of course, everything involved with zoning, how high the buildings are, you know, what was going to be required of the developer coming in. And we actually played a role in the design. And we were fortunate in that instance to have a developer, the same one involved with the Mink building, who really listened to the community and incorporated most of the ideas. I think that the project got expanded when, it really centered around the Tasty factory that had been there and underutilized or unutilized eventually. And also what became a big part of it was the disapproval of, oh shucks, I forgot the name of the deli. It was a nice deli and all, but they were supposed to bring in, yes, Cinderella. They were supposed to hire a certain number of persons from the community for employment opportunities. That did not happen. There were a couple of things they were supposed to do, and the community began then, certain ones, to really rant and you know about that, to the point where Cinderella did not agree or hold up its bargain. And so they decided the best thing for them to do was to leave. And with that, the developer for 126th Street, it all combined, and it ended up being a very nice relationship with the community. And it's developed now, and it's very much an arts or cultural area as well, which is what the community board had proposed. And not just the community board, people in the community.
Right, I think it's important to understand that it's not like the community or the community board didn't have plans for this area. So we actually were the first and maybe the only community board to adopt a 197A plan. So 197C plans are, this refers to the section of the city charter that governs land use. 197C plans are very common. They're neighborhood zonings, usually frequently proposed by city planning. 197A is a provision of the charter that allows community boards to put forth comprehensive community plans, which are not binding, but should set a path forward for all city agencies to work in the community. So we were one of the first and maybe only community boards to use a 197A.
Right.
And as Rita pointed out, sorry, Monique. There we go. So what Laquita is referring to with the Tasty building and one, like between Amsterdam and Convent Morningside, between like 130th and 125th, which is now the Manhattanville Factory District, that was an ongoing negotiation and partnership with Janus Properties. And they asked the community board, Janus Properties was really an affordable housing developer. And they asked the community board what we would like to see in this former industrial area. And the answer back then in the 90s, I think, when that negotiation got started, was jobs. We need jobs, we don't want housing. And we need an employment center in the district. And so they began retrofitting and rehabilitating these historic buildings into offices, biotech laboratories, etc. Art spaces. And the Tasty building, Giuliani gave to his friends at Cinderella in a no bid contract. Cinderella didn't hold up their end of the bargain. The city clawed it back, and then Janus Properties got it under Bloomberg, I want to say. But by then, Cinderella had let the building decay to such a state that it could not be preserved. So it was torn down, and the Tasty building, which now is the biotech hub, stands there. So that's, so that was ongoing, and then it got folded into the Columbia, the Hattonville rezoning, which needed to happen in order for Columbia to build the uses and sizes they wanted on the land that they just had. So I don't know if that provides any clarification. Most of the leverage for the community board came with the rezoning, which is why it happened after the eminent domain. But it was all part of a very long, years-long discussion. Actually, Aquita, you mentioned it came out of housing, zoning, and land use. It actually just came out of the land use committee because they actually split housing and land use for a number of
Yes,
there.
Yes,
that is true.
yes, yes.
And then they were recombined after the rezoning.
All right.
Because I was originally a public member of the land use committee, before it was combined with housing.
Well, you did a beautiful job with that, Barry. And I'll say that with these two projects, it was a very exciting period. A very exciting period for the board, for the community.
A very
A
long.
lot of CB9 heroes worked very intensely on that. Pat Jones was the chair for much of
Yes,
it.
yes.
Dr. Walter South, Jordi Reyes Montblanc. I know I'm forgetting more people, still with us also are a number of folks who worked on that. It's done. So yeah, there's a lot of institutional knowledge and then they're still on the board from that time.
Mhm.
So question on the 197A plan. So, from my understanding, it's not binding, but has Columbia incorporated all what was said in that zoning?
Probably
No.
not.
You're right.
And that was why we were fighting, was that their proposal conflicted with our 197A plan. And so, but many of the goals outlined in 197A served as the basis for the negotiations of what our goals were in the community benefits. So if you look, you'll see the CBA says, you'll see the 197A plan says, these are needs in our community, and then you'll see the CBA has these things because we have these needs in the community, and so it does mirror in some respects the 197A, which is on our website. Okay, that's the overview of the three things. One of the things that I wanted to get into tonight was the provision on disconnected youth, which is where. So there is a provision in the CBA to address disconnected youth, which was one of the priorities identified in our 197A plan. I've opened and now I've lost community scholars, university scholarship, education, factors, patient outreach. If you don't happen to know roughly where it is to be, we're going to the declaration departments and restrictions a little bit as a city. I always want something to be enforceable. Escalators for the 120-51 station. Shadow on a playground. Residential displacement.
Also just out of curiosity, I understand this agreement with Columbia, but that as far as enforceability goes, what are some of the avenues that the community board is trying to pursue in order to damage this? Ensure that they reach their target.
Mostly public chain and repeated hounding. We could theoretically sue.
I was gonna say, because lawsuit could potentially work, but the issue is funding, right? The community board doesn't have funding to do this.
And then the state option is also available, they report to the state,
Right.
and they monitor. So that's another option. But so far, what it's been is negotiations through this committee and Columbia's administrator saying, these are the things that are laid out. And this is what we see that's happening, what's not happening, and try to work on that part of it.
Are they agreeable to amending the solution or no?
So we can't speak for Columbia. I will say, I don't know if you share this view, Victor, but that we are cautiously optimistic about President Shafiq, who took office at Columbia July 1st. And also Columbia has expressed an interest in moving beyond the CBA in its relationship with the community, which sounds very good, and which I think we can all get behind, that the Columbia's relationship with the community is that it's here and we're here, and they should be as much integrated in the community as possible, and they should want, you know, like, for example, one of the biggest open wounds in the relationship between university and the community is the fact that in the CBA, they promised space for a new public school facility. That space was intended for Columbia Secondary School of Math, Science, and Engineering, because it is currently co-located with two other schools at the Ralph Bunchy campus in a building that was built for elementary schoolers. And-
What's that, like a high school?
And it's a high school.
Okay.
And it's in a building built for elementary schoolers, which is a problem if you think about the scale of bathrooms and water fountains and the fact that there are no changing rooms for gym and all of these other problems. This is a school Columbia is affiliated with, a public school, a magnet school that serves Upper Manhattan. They were supposed to get space in the Columbia, in the Manhattanville campus or directly adjacent. Everyone understood that to mean the McDonald's site on 125th Street and Broadway, which is adjacent to the site and which Columbia had the option to purchase. Columbia then did not wind up turning it into a site for a school, with what you could argue is the collusion of the Bloomberg administration, Department of Education. We won't get into that, but we still have a school that is a high school that is stuck in an elementary school building co-located with two other schools that has to eat lunch at 10 a.m. and have students change in staircases and hallways for gym and other completely unacceptable things. And it would be in Columbia's own interests to have this school in the state-of-the-art facility, because it is a recruitment tool for faculty. It is something that their staff would send their kids to. It is something that they sponsor and interact with to help its educational goals. It is a magnet school that they draw from for their undergraduate admissions. Like, this is a win-win-win for everybody, but we're not there. And so, like, we can't move beyond that, in the sense that we're never gonna give that up. And we're never gonna give up other things that were promised in the CBA. However, yes, we should have other things beyond what's in the CBA be part of our priorities in relation to Columbia.
Okay, so besides monitoring, what are some of the top priorities then of the CBA or the different?
Well, I think that's what we're here tonight to talk about. So, you know, we have the disconnected youth provision, which is on page 55 of the of the Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions. So there's the Columbia is supposed to initiate a targeted outreach campaign in partnership with community-based organizations to identify and engage disconnected youth in the community age 16 to 24 who have not completed high school or obtained a GED, in order to enroll them in free high school programs or GED programs operated by community partners, and then be referred for skill training, internships, and work learning. It was supposed to be reviewed by the Columbia and the SDC after 8 years, and if effective, be continued for 25 years from commencement. We have a huge problem with disconnected youth in the community that only became massively bigger in the past 3 years of the pandemic. So, what are they doing to fill that? What did they do? You know, this was to take effect when they bought the land. Did they do this? Was it evaluated? What was the outcome of the evaluation? I don't have answers. Does anyone here have answers?
Very limited, their program as far as, and I think they recently changed it to connecting youth. Instead of disconnected youth. But it's been very limited. The outreach has been limited. I've spoken to both Senate Association Presidents Manhattan and Grant. What's the outreach have been, and it's been, you know, so far not that good. Something we'd like to investigate a little further.
Well, we should check, have you seen any of their monitoring reports?
In the past, yes. I haven't looked at it recently. That's something, a starting point for checking that.
Yeah. And honestly, Columbia should want to help address this problem absent the CBA for a bunch of other reasons. And so I think that's something we should raise with them. But there are other provisions. Does anyone have one in particular they want to talk about tonight?
Employment. One of the provisions is employment on the job site itself. I asked about that several times. And the answer I got in the beginning, probably 4 years ago, that the workers would have to be union workers as well. There was no apprenticeship program back then to people to do that. So you ask for, you're gonna give us jobs, but you have to be union, but you know it ain't. So it's kind of catch-22. And I monitor the site, you know, pretty often. I've gone and spoken to people on the site. And workers of color in particular said they could go across Manhattan or Grant and start an apprenticeship program before they started building, and that could have rolled right into the work program, but that has not been done. I don't know what the numbers are as far as RD businesses and workers on the site, but I don't think it's much better than it was, you know, years ago. Employment, probably one of the bigger ones that people have. In-kind space is something else. They promise space to community organizations, and that always seems to be an issue trying to get that. It took us a fight to get space for the community board itself to meet before, which you would think they would readily give it to us, but that was not the experience. But Barry said, I hope that the new president will get to her like this. She said she very community minded, wanted to engage the community, so I'm hoping that those words come true and she can take a closer look at what's going on right inside, you know, the community of Columbia. And also with their after-school program, Double Discovery Club, and their scholarship programs. I noticed that they had targeted schools, but several targeted high schools are outside of our district. They recently said they wanted to add to that. And hopefully that is truthful, and they can, you know, work with us on that as well. Also, I asked that younger grade schools just be able to visit campus, so they can see people on campus. You know, often they live within Stone's Throw, they think you can't go and visit people. No, they can't go. It's not well. So just to have that interaction for elementary and high school students, to go on campus at Ivy League school and see what it looks like, and see people that look like them, see women that are active, and I think it really helps to do that.
So we have the connecting youth, the employment on the job site numbers that we want to get. Deirdre and Shanika, I don't know, did Lois Penny mention if her organization, NYC for Youth, I believe, if they have a apprenticeship program with the Carpenters Union, did they mention anything about Columbia? I know you gave the updated exec. All right, I don't know if Deirdre or Shanika, if you're talking, you're muted, but I don't know if that might be something we want to connect them with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spoke to her as well, so maybe I can follow up as well with her.
Yeah, she's also president of my block association, so I see her all the time. Double Discovery Center, in-kind space benefits, which is a particular part of Zoom, target schools, and outreach to younger students, like elementary. Does anyone else have any priorities or questions?
One last thing, Barry, the 40 undergrad scholarships that the students in the area to go to Columbia. What I've monitored over the last several years, most of those students are coming from what I call the elite high schools, the Bronx High School of Science, Stuyvesant, Brooklyn Tech, and schools outside of the state. As long as your home address is in the area, in the zone, you can apply. So you have students that go to prep school, boarding school that apply. And when you look at the EDC report, that's what you see. You seldom see the local high schools. So that's something as far as publicizing it, engaging more young people to be aware that those scholarships are there. Full scholarships, as long as you maintain grades, is something we like to promote even more. So.
Does anyone have anything not specifically about the CBA, but maybe relevant for the community benefit funds that are administered by the West Harlem Development Corp? Madison?
Yeah, I said it on the economic development meeting, there's always conversation about the West Palm Piers. And the money that's allocated to them, that was given to parks, I don't know, there's this conversation every time I see it. I know we were there too, maybe some parks, I don't know, I'm not very familiar with that, but that. I never heard that.
That sounds like. Right. I sounds like it's a general project.
There's a perception that the money to the gone to economic, city economic development is close to parks. When we've asked parks about the $500,000 per year to go to that park, I ride my bike weekly, and I would say, is it being spent? Now, we got somewhat of a,
Yeah, we gave them estimate.
estimated. I'd like to see an audit to see. It took screaming and shouting to get porta potties. I mean, come on.
Well, we were supposed to have built physical comfort stations.
They were talking about like the boat, like the canoe, you know, that boat.
Kayak launch was closed since Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah, it's been down in the water since, yeah.
So I guess something back then.
That we need to call parks to the task on, because they stonewalled for a long time. Because you'll see, the provision in the general project plan is West Harlem Piers Park. Columbia has agreed, this is in with the Empire State Development Corporation, the state urban development or agency that did the eminent domain. Columbia has agreed to provide to the city's Department of Parks and Recreation funds for staff and enhanced services for the West Harlem Piers Park, which payments commenced in 2008, shall go till 2032, and will be $500,000 a year with a 3% escalator. Where does that money go? It goes to parks, but where does parks, what does parks do? What are the staff and enhanced services for West Harlem Piers Park? People probably want to bring it up in your committee, right?
Sounds like a comptroller.
Sounds like a controller issue and maybe a parks committee and council oversight issue. Actually, Gail Brewer is chair of the investigations and oversight committee. Okay. Maybe we can put it on her desk.
Well, that was one of my suggestions, to go to city council to ask for an audit. If they're gonna be unwilling. Just whoever's, I imagine whoever city council rep for this area has the power to request an audit for them.
Well, so the audit is a word thrown around a lot. The controller's office has a very specific definition of audit, which may or may not be appropriate here, but they always caution us against calling for audits, because sometimes they do investigations or other things that are not a full audit, because I think they have a lot of rules around how they have to operate an audit. But the council certainly has much more flexible oversight capacity. But the problem is they have a set number of meetings a year usually, and you'd have to like get them to commit to making one of them or part of one of them about this. but it's something we should pursue with our councilman.
Economic development, it's not about to do.
They want to sue Parks and Rec, I talked to them.
Oh,
So I think the audit is way more
Yeah,
better.
So don't ask me why I researched this, but I've researched this and I don't think community boards as an arm of the city can sue other arms of the city. There is a case called Brooklyn Community Board 2 versus City of New York. It's on microfiche and I haven't looked at it yet, but I think that was the outcome of that lawsuit. But
yeah, plus you don't have the money, so just like. Avoid that.
was there something in there about legal services for us? I always forget. Larry English used to know about that.
yeah, I can't recall directly for us, but I might take it on for that.
Good luck.
Or there's the state.
No, you can raise.
What's happening?
Monique had a question, I believe.
Oh, Monique, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to comment because of what Barry just said, because I had a chance to sit in on the Economic and Development Committee. I think it was 2 weeks ago when it was brought up that we should sue to find out what happened to the monies in terms of parks. And so if it's, as Barry stated, that we can't be in a position to sue, that information should just get to Merida and Joyce, because that was discussed a great deal during that committee meeting. We understand the importance of accountability so that we can know, for example, what is going on and why we haven't had any movement on the Marine Transfer Station, which is why that conversation came up. And if there's a different way we have to proceed, then that information needs to get to Joyce and Merida. So that was my
Well,
comment.
We can communicate this with them, and Mike, you should also feel free to member that committee. But an intermediate step here might be to submit a FOIL request. So you could file a request for all DPR, all Parks and Rec documentation on the 500 $1,000.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
you're just saying.
Oh, we're supposed to get wireless internet at that park as well. There's a lot of stuff in here that's good. Who knew?
Yeah, right.
Nice view.
Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but one of the things that we can do is if we word it well. We can say we would like all of the documentation for how the Parks and Rec spent funding for staff enhanced services for West Pierce Park received from Columbia University since 2008. And then the city's law department, in cooperation with the agency, has to then go through, find that documentation and produce it. So I think that's something that we could do in advance of talking about litigation, or maybe an audit. Is try to get the documentation ourselves first, but do it in a way that has more teeth than just asking what.
Thank you, Barry.
Yes. There is another provision that I wanted to talk about tonight, which Daria Hardiman had asked me to put on the agenda. And that is stage for artists. Where did that go?
Yeah, something like that.
Yes. Availability of facilities, new pool. So here we go. Artist space, so this is on 58 of the PDF, 52 of the document, artist space. So Columbia shall make available 5,000 square feet of space or spaces within or contiguous to the project site for use by local artists. Declarant shall subsidize this space such that it is accessible to a variety of artists and/or artist organizations. Such space shall be made available commencing with the first temporary certificate of occupancy received for either development sites 8, 9, 10, or 17. There's a map of that later in this document, and shall continue to be made available for a 25-year period. So I looked at the map, 58, and I want to go down to 160 something. The map for those is here. No. Here. So development site 7 is on 12th Avenue between 131st and 130th Street. And then 8 is between 131st and 132nd. And we are sitting in development site 11. Yeah. So if you want to see what Columbia plans to do with each of these development sites, read the project proposal. Yeah. Yes, this building. Well, they're obligated to provide you with new housing. Addison does live in this building. So lot 7 has been developed and opened. It is one of the new business school buildings. And that opened sometime, I want to say 2021 or 2022. So we are now in that 25-year period. 161, what did I just say? 52 is the page number.
So a quick question, just as is Columbia technically own where we are right now?
Oh, yeah. Okay. And the city pays a hefty rent to them for this space. We got some bucks about.
Hey, Brett. City's paying rent.
Yeah.
It should be on the campus.
Yeah.
Well, you'll notice that right before artist space, communities, so the last of the stage 1 new buildings, we shall have rent-free office and meeting space on the project site to accommodate at least 4 full-time persons and a meeting space for regular meetings throughout the month to accommodate at least 50 people. We should have made that 75, but whatever. Still So they were supposed to make meeting rooms available, or they should make meeting rooms available to local community organizations for 2 evenings per month. DCAS would govern that. DCAS is a 4-letter word. Artist space though. So 5,000 square feet of space or space within or contiguous project site for use. And so this triggered in 2021 or 2022 when that building, the second building for the business school that is adjacent to the viaduct in 12th Avenue, when that was completed and got its certificate of occupancy, this provision kicked in. And so there was a resolution before Arts and Culture this month. West Harlem Arts Alliance wanted that space to be able to administer, and I think Arts and Culture appropriately kicked it to us for consideration. I don't know if we got the actual resolution, did we? I haven't seen it. But I think one question that should be before us and the Arts and Culture Committee is how and who will decide what artists and organizations get that space and when they get it.
I think we talked about it during the meeting.
Michael did?
Yeah, and another Michael actually.
So.
Essentially resolution.
Oh, you sent your
Like
right.
resolution, yeah.
So. I think though that we've had a lot of fights with the development court where, you know, someone has a project they want to do and they want to take advantage of At the community benefits agreement in kind space. And then they submit a request to the West Harlem Development Corporation. And they get rejected, and it's not exactly clear why. And so I think one of the things that we're going to want to monitor very closely is, well, what are the guidelines and rules that we have on who can get that space and not, and what should that procedural process look like? Because it has been anecdotal and personal experience that folks have not been happy with the outcome of the development corp administering it. Okay, weird, I haven't gotten it. You sent it to Barry J. Weinberg, right? Okay. You'd be surprised how often you forget that J, and it goes to some other poor schmuck named Barry who gets really sick of getting my emails. So that is something that I think we should consider is how, like, what processes should be in place? Is there an expected turnaround time for when someone submits a request? What are they actually going to charge, if anything, and who makes that decision? And what rules are they bound by? You know, should you have to be a nonprofit in order to share that space? Arguably, no, because many artists are not nonprofits. They're artists that are either, you know, if they have a business, they're sole proprietorships or whatever. They're contractors with complicated tax filings. But is anyone here who's on arts and culture? No. Okay, well, that would be helpful. They refer it to us if they were here, but this is the piece of the declaration that deals with that. And so we are in that time frame. We just started, relatively speaking. We haven't started within the past 2 or 3 years, but we're there now, and we need to get some clarity on that. You were at the meeting Monday.
Yes, yes, I know there was concern about, one organization utilizing all the space, but making sure it was available to all artists in the area. And that kind of went back and forth. Didn't have a quorum as well, so they wanted to take it to the committee itself to talk about that.
Well, I think the question should really be whoever's organizing the space, whether it's Columbia or the coalition and hopefully not the development corp. What processes and procedures should that organization follow to determine whether or not someone gets the space, how often, when, how much cost, etc. But so, does anyone have any other thoughts on either issues in the CBA or the arts space?
Just a question on the artist space, which development site did you guys pick as far as the?
We didn't pick.
Oh,
Don't
no,
pick.
Columbia's.
Columbia shall make available. So we don't have that. There are other in-kind benefits that are not artist related. But Columbia has expressed a difficulty in understanding which spaces it controls that are free when. Which doesn't actually surprise me very much. But this is the last item on the agenda. So unless anyone has any other thoughts about either the budget or the community benefits agreement and its associated paraphernalia, it'll be open floor and then we'll adjourn. Raise your hands if you have any other items or questions or thoughts. If you're on Zoom, just unmute. Motion to adjourn. All right, there is a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of adjourning, say aye. Meeting is adjourned, also say nay. Meeting is adjourned at 8:21 p.m. So everyone be on the lookout for budget links. There'll be an email with a ton of links. You will be better prepared than most because you were here tonight and we put through at least half of it. Yes. Please circulate these to your neighbors. These are the. Excellent. However, keep thinking, if you're staying awake at night tonight, lying on the ceiling trying to sleep, think about what projects you want to fund. And it's like counting sheep, 1 million for Hamilton Grange Library.
Yeah.
1 million for George Bruce Library. 1 million for PF
Oh, we can wait
25.
till-
125.
Yeah.
All right, wait, let me, can you save the, chat?
That's great.
Well, yeah, the transcript will be saved. There we go, I saved the chat.
Oh, yeah.
We will stop it, please.
Yes, stop the recording and then we'll end the meeting. Good night, everybody. See you in person on
Good night,
Thursday.
everyone.
Good night,
Be
everyone.
safe.
At-
Be safe.